In this final episode of season 2 of The Imperfect Clinician, we talk about team health and how we should treat it as physical health and physical fitness. And we'll talk about why and what qualities are we looking out for, what tools can we use to make sure that the team is in tip-top condition.
We're even going to mention fun.
My name's Yuen.
And I'm Mike. Welcome to The Imperfect Clinician. In the last episode, we were discussing culture in a team because we believe it's quite an important part of team dynamics, of forming the team and what underpins the work in a team. Today, we want to turn it up a notch and we want to focus on team health. So, what is it?
I would say that we need to treat team health as if it's physical health and fitness. So the reason why I'm saying it, because if it's physical health, we need to be checking in. And if it's fitness, we need to build it like a muscle. So what do you think? How do we ensure that we add the right people to the health of the team? So before assessing the team, let's assess the people. When you're recruiting, what are you looking out for?
I think, it's essential to understand that the team building starts at recruitment.
Yep.
And in this department, I think we need to really focus on the qualities and the character of individual person and not necessarily on the skills or knowledge. I mean, skills and knowledge are something that we can develop and that, of course, they are very important for the work of the team and we don't want to teach people from scratch. So they need to have some basis for discussion about what we are going to do. But the individual traits, individual qualities of each team member is good to take into consideration when we are creating the teams. So what qualities would I look for? I would like to see people who are able to be kind, people who can demonstrate a bit of empathy, who can demonstrate
a bit.
Yeah, well, to demonstrate empathy and to make sure that they can thrive in the environment where others are valued and matter. Because teams are, as much as they are about individuals, they are also about the dynamics between everybody else. And having people who are self-centered, who are more focused on themselves and are unable to cooperate with others because they are loners. I don't know, people who should really be doing something else. And that is going to create some problems and tensions later on.
Okay, what about people who brings negative energy to the team or they zap energy of others?
Well, is it always easy to tell during the interview?
Might be tricky to tell.
Yeah, it might be tricky to tell. I think that it's important to demonstrate the values of the team and see what reaction that's going to provide. I mean, you say, right, in our team, we want to look out for each other. We want to, and if somebody looks at you and just, their expression is going to say, oh, this is wishy-washy, and I don't really feel like that's an important thing. If you present yourself and your team and what is the purpose, where are the strengths of the team. I think this will also provide a good opportunity for people who are applying for the job to reconsider it if they don't feel that this is the area where they would fit in. If you stress out, right, I'm looking for strong individuals, and somebody is not that, then the only natural consequence for them is, well, I'm not going to be a right fit for the team. So I think that there should be both ways. You should present the team, how the team works, what is important for the team, as well as the person recruited should tell you about themselves. You always should consider asking them for scenarios, for example, that would give you an idea of how they approach certain situation, or how they what they experience in the past, and see where the values lie. What stories they're going to bring up, what significance. And if people are telling you the stories about how they, I don't know, solved the problem or looked out for another person, not necessarily from work, but also from the family, you can see how engaged they are. You can see, because this is a talk about the feelings. This is a talk about how you approach others. And it's very hard to fake it. You can convince people about, your skills in selling, right? I sold that much and all that, but it doesn't really tell us what you've been selling, how you've been selling it, how you've been talking to people, if you've been delivering amazing services and all that. We don't know what impact it had on the others. So using those, again, going back to our very first episode about analog skills, we can gauge how people are with those, how people approach others, how people react to kindness. What you can ask them, what's their idea of diversity? How have they encountered racism and what they've done about it? Have they encountered any problem with inequalities? I mean, we all talk about, inequalities being all around us, but what do we actually do about it? Do we just listen about it? We all have got some sort of stories about that, whether it's I don't know, elderly lady in the supermarket that somebody pushed in front of her. That's the level of, of empathy you can come across that will warrant you a not necessarily interesting but valuable story. Yeah, and reaction to those situations are very important to me.
I think it's important to think of recruiting like Lego set instead of a jigsaw puzzle. So we get varying qualities and different inputs, because we don't want everyone to have very similar personalities. We want people to see from different perspective, not just diversity on the table, but also diversity in skills and what they can bring to the table and what are their strengths, and perhaps their areas of improvement is somebody else's strength. So you create a more well-rounded team, I guess, instead of a imbalanced team.
Agreed.
We talked about checking in. So team health checks, I think it's really important, because I would much prefer to use the approach of proactive. So the same old saying of prevention's better than cure. I think we need to approach it the same way when we are looking at team health. So how do we recognize problems?
So this stands in opposition to, if it's not broken, don't fix it, because you need to make sure that you take proactive steps. I agree that prevention is better than cure, because we always say, oh, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But I think when it comes to talking to people, to responding to team problems or team issues in general, it's important to be proactive and see things coming your way. So those subtle signs. So how do you recognize that things are going not in the right direction?
I think being a leader, depending on how big the team is, and not a lot of the times you can hear what's happening. So keeping an ear on the ground is a good idea. Keeping an eye out, or I should say an ear out for rumors. But I feel those are quite reactive approach. So it would be a good idea to create systems where managers or leaders are able to have regular communication with everyone in the team. So then it creates a space for people to talk about what's puzzling them instead of letting it fester and ruminate, because usually then that snowballs into something much bigger. Would you agree?
I think that you're absolutely right when it comes to reaching out for the feedback. And this goes back to our episode when we're talking about feedback, when we're talking about communication. All of this now has got direct translation to the use of it within the team. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to those episodes about communication, about feedback, about assuming best intentions, I think it's good to have a little listen to them again. Communication is the key in any team, and proactive communication is very important. So we need to, in my opinion, reach out to individuals, check up on them, whether it's less or more casual. That depends on the style of the leader. But I believe that a quick checkup now and again, how's it been, what people are working on, where are they, what support they might need, is quite an idea, to pursue on a regular basis.
And even though I'm sure time is scarce for a lot of you, but make sure when you do have that conversation, make sure that you're able to give your team member full on attention. Because imagine if you're asking that question and you're in the process of walking away, or you are asking the question and then looking at your screen, or asking that question and then typing something or moving on to something else, you don't show that you are present.
It's important to show care.
Yeah. And it might be that you care, you just don't feel that you're present
But
in the
about
moment.
showing, it's about showing, making sure that people understand that they have got your attention.
Yeah. And so create space for that. So come, let's go to the room and talk about it, or let's schedule a time and actually schedule it in and talk about it. So I think having something like this is really important. If it's not something that you are doing, check whether it is your role, whether it's the manager's role, whose role is it. Someone has to take responsibility for it. And also it creates different dynamic when it's done, when you are investing in relationship.
And this is something that doesn't necessarily only apply to the team. It's like you would ask your loved one, but it's not like, all right, how are you doing? You can't, peel your eyes off the phone, or you are busy cooking or doing whatever else. You just need to just sit down, look in the eye, says, how's things for you?
Exactly.
Something a bit more honest and caring.
Like
it's
I'm
not
here.
the routine. It shouldn't be felt like one of the 100 how are you doing we say to everybody else all around us, because we do that, but that doesn't always mean that we have got this undivided time. It doesn't have to be a very long time, but showing care always comes back.
Yeah, so imagine the difference between someone that you care about, or your other half, saying to you, how are you doing? And then that person being on the phone against, how are you doing? That person putting the phone aside and then facing you. Body language wise, saying, I'm ready, I'm available to listen. So that's the difference as a
Follow
leader.
Follow your feelings. How relationships are formed is through the feelings. You can't, just tick the box. Oh yeah, I did ask 6 people today how they were. That's not how it works.
Okay, so we talked about in our previous episode establishing purpose aligning goals and values. So I think that's really important. So I just want to break it down to perhaps a summary of what we discussed and then add a little bit more context to a few points. The other one, we talked about cohesion. So we wanted for the team to have trust and respect, and that has to come from communication. So by that, we talked about creating psychological safety, a sense of belonging at work. This is in season 1 of our episode. We talked about vulnerability and being authentic. And then I think that leads to collaboration, which is what we would like to see teamwork going on. So in the last episode, we talked about changing from competitiveness to collaboration. And I want to add in another point. So we talked about encouraging differences in opinions and diversity, but also I feel it's quite positive to be able to hear a team member challenging anyone, whether challenging the team leader, challenging each other in a very constructive manner. What do you think?
Conflict is very hard to manage in most circumstances because usually it involves interests of different people, and the area of competence, depending what is being questioned, is usually about.
So I wouldn't go to conflict first because conflict resolution is something else, but this is more challenging thoughts. So if you say something and I said, oh, hold on, I disagree, I think it should be, or help me understand, whichever it is.
That comes to down. It all comes down to the psychological safety of people around you in a team and the approachability of people in a team. How they know each other, how much they can allow each other to question what they're saying, and it should be a safe space for talking. I think it's quite important to understand in the team that if we're all adults and we agree to work in a team, all the opinions that we express are not personal, and it's got to do with the work that we're working on. I know it's very hard very often to distinguish personal opinion from opinion about the work that we're doing, but it is quite important to switch to that thinking that we have to focus on work, and nothing that we say is against somebody else, but it's for the benefit of the whole team.
Yes, and I think it's a sign that if you see this in your team and the disagreement or challenging a thought or an opinion, it's being used, it's like synergy, and that friction in a way actually builds the whole team up. So everyone understands each other's perspective. They feel that they are safe to raise their concerns or identify their own learning needs. You talked about conflict resolution. So when it gets to conflict, to the point of conflict, like you said, it's a very difficult conversation. But we mentioned this in our Assume Best intention. So I think it's important to be clear and take in all perspective, set boundaries, and be curious instead of being judgmental. Anything else that I've missed on there?
I think that being curious is always thing that should be tattooed on the back of our eyelids when we are talking to others, because it's the only way that can move things forward, in my opinion. It's very hard to change your judgments especially if you get into the heated discussion with someone.
Absolutely agree. And I think that brings us to the next point, which is ownership. As a leader, I want to feel that if I'm delegating, my team members taking on either the project or the topic and make it their own. So there is accountability attached to it. And if they struggle, they know how to reach out for help with me providing what do you call it, safe
Railings.
Yes, railings on the side. And then the next point brings us to a balanced team. So identifying skill mix, a varied set of skills, talents, like you said, work experiences and problem solving styles.
And personal experiences as well.
Agree, because I would like to have a team that a team that embraces creativity and innovation. So doing things differently, trial, error, learning from it, happy to learn from mistakes instead of a perfectionist that is afraid of making mistakes. What else do you think is important?
I think it's also important to look for continuous development and improvement. It's quite a skill to ensure that we grow, not only individually, but as a team, because we have to accept the fact that things change. The world around us changes. We change. So if we become complacent, that risks generating not only decreased results or not only falling into bad practices, but also creates dissatisfaction. And, sometimes people just wake up and say, oh, it's not like it used to be. And we have to accept that we can always, go back to the old times in our memories, but life moves on and the targets change, the team structure change, people in the team change, leaders change as well. And by understanding that life moves on, it gives us slightly better skill of adaptability to the situation. So I think it's important to learn through constructive feedback and also look into progression planning, how to future-proof the team, how to ensure that people are focused on how everybody is involved in that growth.
I agree. I think one of the role as a leader is to keep an eye on the present and also to look forward to the future. And progression planning is one of them. And having clear progression plans with the people in the team so they are involved in it, because I want to take into account their interests, their strengths, and aligning it to what the practices need.
And a desire to step up potentially.
Yeah, exactly. The other point, we talked about this briefly already, is how agile the team is. So I think one of the traits of having a team that is quite resilient is having a team that is very adaptable. By doing that, you'll see it results in a high performing team because they embrace change. They're not afraid to bounce back. And I think in order to have an agile team, you need to have all the relevant points that we've already talked about before, because what we've mentioned before are the building blocks to an agile team. I think it's important to minimize hierarchy because it can create a lot of blocks to communication.
And it adds complexity to the interaction.
And
so you're talking about the flatter structure of hierarchy.
Yes, where
are we all equal?
So I wouldn't say I don't think hierarchy shouldn't exist, but I think communication should be able to flow even in a hierarchical organization quickly, swiftly, and you get leaders who are responsive and not selectively choosing what messages go through.
I agree that I don't think we're talking about a flat structure where everybody's equal and everybody's doing exactly the same thing or contributes, because that does not work. But I think that hierarchy shouldn't take priority over communication.
I agree.
And I think that this is important. The shortening the distance to people that can make a difference is more important than going through the right channels of, who is important than everybody else.
Exactly.
I think we should step away from people who are attached to what they have written on the badge or in the job title. You need to focus on the team, on the health of the team, and not necessarily on on who is more important than everybody else just because they've been longer in a team, for example.
Yeah, and I think perhaps having some distance from the badge, like you say, the status or the title, because one way or another, it's a torch that you hold for however long that you're holding, and then you're passing it on to something else. And when you're holding the torch, you have a vision, you have a purpose, and mainly you are serving other people. So your priority should not be the first thing on the agenda. It should be how to serve the people around me, whether that is patient population, whether it's my team, whether it's addressing health inequalities, for example. So the self shouldn't be a bigger priority than the community. What else do you think is important in the team?
In a team, I think we've mentioned before, even in a previous episode, you were talking about fun.
Yes.
And tell us why fun is so important, not only in the team culture, but also for the team health in this context.
I've heard an old saying that says if you learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And actually, that is brilliant because how you build relationship, you build connection is when you're relaxed, when you are having a laugh, when you're playing, when you are joking, when you are trying to understand each other, when you are relaxed instead of in a.
What do you need for a fun environment? You need some authenticity, because this is one of those feelings that is very hard to, I think, in that respect, we have to understand that through play, through fun, we get to understand other people's authentic self. And that what enables better, speeds up the connection, increases the communication channels, and also reduces the barriers. I'm not saying that it's very important for everybody to go absolutely, only live on that level, that we are constantly, I don't know, telling jokes, but being a little bit lighthearted allows to connect better. We spend a lot of time at work, and why do we have to always be 100% super focused on everything? We need a bit of a breather now and again. And who else would you want to do it rather than in a team with people you feel comfortable in, people you feel you belong to? I believe that it's not only play or telling jokes that's where we are our authentic, and focusing on the work is absolutely priority, and we have to make sure that we do some work actually. But in a team, it's like in a family. You need to do some work. You need to do things that are important. You need to do things that some people may not like to do. I mean, try to get your little kids to brush their teeth. That's one thing that has to be done, but it's still, with a bit of fun, probably gets done a little bit easier, and it can be embraced as a fun activity as well.
I like this. So if we summarize, we talked about maybe 11 points in terms of checking in for team health. And I got this, it was broken down to 4 categories. This is in a book called Partnering by Jean Olwang. So 4 categories of magnetic moment in a book called Partnering by Jean Olwang. So, first one, joy and play. Second, curiosity and wonder. Third, space for honest communication. And finally, time with supportive community. We spend more than half of our day at work. I think it's crucial to create a sense of community and family to the people at work and the people that we serve. Because if we feel safe at home and at work, that's most of our day, which is equivalent to most of our lives.
Spend as long at work as we spend sleeping in a lot of circumstances.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gone through all the things that you feel are important in a team, but how do we... Is there a way of quantifying it? Is there a way of finding a structure for this assessment of a team health?
There are lots of team health tools that are available online, so please do have a look. There are always new ones that are coming out. If you want to pay for them, go ahead. But there are quite a few that are free and accessible for you to check in on your team. It might be a good idea to do it as a team building exercise and make it quite fun and light.
Yeah, so basically what they do, they consider certain values or certain qualities in a team. Like, for example, what examples have
A
you
lot
got?
of what we discussed today, all the points that we talked about, are usually included in a team health check. So I
Yeah,
would suggest go and have a look, find one that works for you, maybe try a few, get feedback from the team, and then go from there. I think any tool that starts communication and starts opening hearts is a good place to be.
absolutely. Yeah, so just to give you an idea of how it works, if you have, for example, establishing purpose or aligning goals, you can ragdoll system it. So you provide red, amber, or green onto those values, and you say, right, do we have a purpose? If we have a purpose, that's green. If we are still working on a purpose or it's a little bit uncertain, you might consider it amber. And if you're still, not considered a purpose, you may look for it, in the future, still put it as a red. And then you can do it in a function of time to see how those values and how feelings about those values change within the team.
An understanding of the values, because some can be a way that Mike mentioned, some can be from a scoring system. So there are lots of different ways where the tool are available, but also perhaps this can be a direct, just like patients' responses or patients' questionnaire. You can do that for the team, get them to fill it in anonymously, and then you gather data as a team or an organization and then identify any areas of improvement. Okay, we move on to Yuen Read afterwards, and we will see you in our new season.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you all for sticking with us during this second season. It was an absolute pleasure and honor that you decided to spend some time with us, and I hope we're going to all meet after a short break as soon as we start releasing episodes from season 3. We are looking forward to that, and we hope you do too. Look out on our socials for exact date when we're going to release next season. And we're looking forward to meeting you sometime around mid-May. Thank you. Until next time. It's about time for Yuen Reads.
Welcome to Yuen Reads. This book is called Butterfly by Yusra Mardini. This was a really inspiring story. I find it was a story about how a woman who was a young Syrian refugee and how was her journey when traveling from Syria to Greece, and all the hardship that she felt in between the journey that she had with all the other refugees. And when she arrived in Greece, believe it or not, she wanted to compete in the Olympics, and she did. She joined the 2016 refugee Olympic team in Rio, and her story, it just shows how much human spirit and grace she has, and the survival throughout that journey, and her bravery and her resilience is like never give up. And she was swimming in a pool and then swimming in the sea to fight for her life, and now swimming in the Olympics, and then using her story now to work with the Yuen as a goodwill ambassador. And how she uses her story to remind us all that refugees are ordinary people in horrible, extraordinary circumstances. It really inspired me. I actually had a chat with my 6-year-old because we were talking about war in Ukraine, and she had some books about refugees, and she said it made her really sad. And I shared my story with her, and it made the refugee, or made Yusra, feels like a person, because you can attach a story to it. You've got background. If not, it can become very 2D, I guess, when you listen to stories about the war. It's completely different when you hear what do they actually like doing. And it was, yeah, it took my breath away. It's, yeah, just for me, just unforgettable memoir. And I'm glad. I don't know how it came to me, actually, this book. I need some reminding. Probably came up on my reading list in terms of recommended to read this type of book. Or maybe I was searching for some refugee books because of our conversation. Nevertheless, it's exciting true story about amazing resilience and the example that she sets for just humans, children everywhere. It's, yeah, in awe, completely bow down. Thank you for joining. Till next time.
You just listened to the Imperfect Clinician podcast. We strongly recommend you leave your email on our website so that we can let you know directly about any news and free exclusive content for subscribers. If you review us on Apple Podcast or Podchaser, there is a chance we can reach more people seeking support and encouragement.
Reflect on how you are now and let us know about one thing you would do differently after listening to us. We love to hear from you, so please keep the questions coming via direct message, email, comment, or record a voicemail on our website. We will do our best to answer you either directly or via the podcast.
Bye for now, and until next time.